Chapter 9. A Night to Remember. Sunday the 3rd of April, 2016. Well, things are finally coming together for me, dear diary, and I have the feeling that this is my year. Ian, the owner of Shouting Voices, is very impressed with the work I've produced for him so far, and I think equally impressed that I show the dedication to work on Sunday and come and meet him in the evening. Of course, I know that a man like that is certainly busy all the time, never mind in the week. And I also know that a bit of hard work early on can make a great lasting impression. My old friend Inky popped in. We talked of hard work. He said that while working at Saatchi and Saatchi, the custom was to buy a jacket and hang it on one's chair permanently, creating the illusion one's always in, during lunch and after hours. Inky's a great sport, and a smooth change after the coarseness of Curtis last week. He said he's a successful stand-up comedian now and performs nightly at the King Edward Hotel. He even offered to reserve 2 tickets for any of his performances for my name. Even better, after meeting Ian today, we talked a lot about art and film. He's a very arty man, but has become a businessman, and I think he regrets not pursuing his art further, whatever that was. He said he'd like to see my graphic novel one day. Miri, who has now completely forgiven me for Curtis's behaviour, came up with a great idea. We'll have a party this coming Friday night. One where I can schmooze Ian and maybe get some more work, or even get some backing for The Velvet, a detective story. Monday, 4th of April, 2016. Excellent work today. Spent most of it working on The Velvet and keeping a low profile in hot blue. I've had a surge of energy, the type of which I haven't had since I was in my 20s, building my first portfolio. Also, Magnus showed me a picture today, where he had separated a ball into 2 halves, one black and one white, an early attempt at cross-hatch shading. The boy has a lot of potential. Perhaps one day he could be an architect or a sculptor. Miri was annoyed as she found an old pot of anchovies Curtis left behind, and on opening it found a stubbed-out cigarette. I don't see why this is my fault. Tuesday, 5th of April, 2016. I was in Chiswick today looking for a nice chess set to go on the coffee table for the party, and I found a beautiful brass telescope for only £400, which I managed to talk down to £375. What a bargain. I could haggle in the souks of Marrakesh. Wednesday, 6th of April, 2016. Great news. I invited Ian to our party and he gracefully accepted and agreed to come with to see Inky perform his stand-up. It looks like we'll have about 12 people over. I'll buy some cheeky hooch and some snacks. I hope Curtis doesn't pull his usual trick of bringing over a cheap bottle of wine and then making an assault on the drinks cabinet. Thursday, 7th of April, 2016. Miri's parents have agreed to take Magnus tomorrow night, which means my Saturday morning will be disrupted, but hey-ho, I can't wait. Everything is set. Saturday, the 9th of April, 2016. Ian was late meeting me outside the King Edward. So when we finally got the tickets and sat down, we were jeered at by the warm-up act. I can't believe the woman on the stage called Ian a geek. He looks nothing like a geek. We sat down, and I have to say, neither of us were impressed by Inky's flat performance. His jokes were obviously not so much memorized as ingrained, and I felt a terrible disappointment, and not a small bit of embarrassment, as I had pumped up Inky terribly. Ian and I were both feeling far from the party spirit when we got back to my place. Curtis had arrived and was a little too sauced up, but was talking to people and getting things going. Miri was rushed off her feet, and I took over serving drinks as she let Henry and Tonya in, followed quickly by Paul, who was unaccompanied but who thoughtfully brought a very nice Sauvignon Negro. Things were going quite well, and I wanted to get Ian to look at my work privately before everyone got too merry. This was difficult, however, as Ian had met Curtis and they were having a whale of a time talking about pop culture. Sebastian and Ritzy arrived and brought a mutual friend of themselves and Miri, a lanky, peculiar-looking woman, Lydia. I was annoyed as I hadn't invited Lydia or mentioned anything about +1s, but I had soon forgotten this minor affront when an opportunity arose in the conversation to show Ian The Velvet, a detective story. Unfortunately, Curtis thought that I was inviting both he and Ian, and we all ended up in my bedroom. Curtis, the Philistine boar, snorted when I showed them the cover. "Is that the detective?" he asked stupidly, before adding, "He looks a lot like you." I explained the ins and outs of my protagonist, Cy Allmason, and showed them the novel, leaf by leaf, explaining each one in detail. Ian said little, I think because Curtis kept making snide little remarks, things about me really hitting the genre, and that the shading was very good, I think he was quite jealous. Needless to say, his remarks put Ian off and ruined the mood, so we rejoined the party and I felt considerably disheartened. On coming back, things weren't going so well as Pussywillow had vomited in Tonya's handbag and Alex had tried to clean it up but in fact just smeared cat vomit all over the rug. After this, I found Paul talking to Ian and would have diplomatically broke them had I not been distracted by the sight of Curtis smooching with Lydia. Immediately after this, I heard Paul asking me why I had taken the hot blue contract for myself, and Ian ring-fencing himself by saying he thought we'd had an honest talk about it. Paul looked angry and Ian looked disappointed. Even now, I can hear the doors closing. I thought I was saved by the bell as it were, when the door knocked loudly, but I was confronted by 2 police officers who said they had had a complaint about the noise. I feel as though my social life has taken a serious setback, that my work at Hot Blue may be in total jeopardy, and that I might lose work with Ian too, and certainly that I can't bring up The Velvet, a detective story, again with him. This may be the beginning of a bad time, but still, an artist like me will always thrive from adversity.
The Diary of a Hipster was inspired by George and Whedon Grossmith's serial and later book, The Diary of a Nobody. It was read by Damien Benedict and produced by George Rockall-Schmidt.